Shannon lied about her age though when we met.
Oh, you said you were younger or older?
She thought I was young. It was
thought-
brilliant. It was in my head. I was like, "Is this a red flag or is this quite funny?"
No, because I told you
She's
immediately.
lied to me. Yes.
Well, because
No, the next day. It took the next day. We were talking about our age, and she just goes, "By the way, I lied about my age." And I was like, "Why?"
What was the age that you made yourself
thought
that night?
he was 23 or something. So when you asked me how old I was, because I just was having fun and we were just in Barcelona and I just thought this won't lead to anything. This would never be my husband. I was like, I said I was 27, even though I was 28. Like, it's even weirder though.
That's even more weird. That was the thing that was so.
only did a year.
I was like, "She did a year." I was like, "What's the difference?"
28 felt like really close to 30. So I was just like 27. And then he was like, I was like, what about you? He's like, oh, right, I'm 28. And I was like, dang it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Living Fully podcast. This is a little bit sad to say, but this is my last episode before maternity leave. I don't know how long maternity leave is going to be for the podcast, so I was like, I really want to go out with a bang and have somebody that's fun, have an uplifting, like upbeat conversation with like people that I really like. And so I brought on Shannon and James Middleton today. Shannon, formerly Shannon Ford. You guys may know Shannon from Very Cavallari way back in the day. Now she has a podcast that does really well. She's doing a comedy show. James and Shannon got married not even a year ago in Italy. And James has an amazing online presence as well. He does a lot of health and fitness content. We're going to talk about that today. I really love his no nonsense to like health approach. And they are just, they just exude like love for each other, but also like I love each of their individual passions and where they've gone in their careers. I love talking about like the differences in the culture of growing up in London versus growing up in South Carolina like Shannon. There are just so many things that make this podcast so fun and just rich. And I'm just really excited today to have on Shannon and James. So I'm so excited to be here with my friends, Shannon and James Middleton.
Do you know what I just realized in this exact moment?
What?
Because I know we're probably going to talk about marriage and the wedding. I didn't wear any of my rings.
Oh,
sorry.
That's the first piece of salacious news that we're going to
Unbelievable.
start with
She's
today.
single.
Unbelievable. She does that. She does that quite a lot, you know.
She would.
I'm like, your ring's here. You're going for a week. I'm like, what was that about?
No,
You
not
gotta
a
keep
week.
your options open.
Babe, it's just so big. I'd be forgetting to take it off.
I know. That is a good ring.
No, it's a nice one. I'm sorry. Anyways, we're doing fine. This is.
You're
Yeah,
doing
we're
fine.
doing
You
fine.
just forgot the ring at home. Yeah, that's a great way to start it, because here's the thing. I think that everyone that knows you guys and follows you on social media loves the story of your love and your relationship. And I love having couples on, because like the only couples really that come on here besides like my parents, like I've had like one or two on, but it's like me and Kyle. They've heard everything about our relationship. And you guys' relationship is just so rich and so exciting and so unexpected.
Yeah.
That it's aspirational for a lot of people. But you know what I love about it too? I think that you both were in a place like when you met, it seems like, because Shannon, like you and I have been friends for a long time. And I just feel like you guys were in a place to where like the thing that came along that is this beautiful love story, you could see it right in front of you.
Yeah.
And you're like ready for it.
Yeah.
And then look what it turned into. It's just,
Yeah,
it's a
wild.
beautiful story.
It's really great because anytime someone tells me, and I never get over it, like when they're like, "Oh my gosh, I love the way you met." I'm like, "Me too!" Like it's such a special story for us that to me just never gets old. And every once in a while I'll test him because I'm like, "You still think it's beautiful, and magical, and amazing that it happened like this?" And he's like, "Yes, of course I do." Like it really never gets old just hearing how we met. And it's just really special.
And we still talk about it every now and again randomly. Like it's absolutely wild. All of the pieces that had to have happened that night for us to have met, not just once when we first saw each other, but again the second time round, just every little decision to then us being like married in America. It's just
the best.
crazy.
It's so cool. So I want to start out with that story. So who's going to, do you tell it the same or do you tell it different?
If Shannon tells it, that could be the full hour. So I'll let Shannon, you go. No, you tell it.
I'll let you tell it, babe.
No, you tell it.
I know it's sweet. It's sweet when you tell it. Just remember the little details, okay? Just remember the little
Well,
details.
if I miss any little details, jump in.
Okay.
Okay.
In the car ride here, he said, by the way, with this podcast, do you mind just not jumping in so much whenever I talk? And you just said jump in.
Yeah.
Let James talk.
I'll let you talk, babe.
I just have to sometimes set rules with Shannon because otherwise she'll
I like boundaries.
You know
Motor
what?
mouth.
That's okay. I get a lot of rules set for me too.
Yeah.
I do step past the boundaries
like
sometimes.
I love crossing that line.
competing
Ooh,
for
yeah.
air sometimes.
Yeah.
A lot of gray area.
Okay, so we were both on separate trips in Barcelona. I was with my friends. She was with her friend, just little vacations. And it was the first night we were there. And me and my friend were going out for dinner. We were late for dinner, so we were just, torpedoing down the road. And I saw Shannon and Marissa, who she was with, her friend, to the right. And when you see a hot person, like when you're on holiday and you're like, oh wow, like she's hot, she's attractive. So we locked eyes.
It was across the street. So we weren't we didn't pass each other.
Yeah, it was like a little bit. No, but I remember you were coming down an alleyway and we were just walking straight. Anyway, we sort of locked eyes. I said to my friend, wow, gosh, she was hot. And he had a girlfriend. So he was like, dude, come on, we're late for dinner. Just stop getting distracted. And we then continue marching on for dinner. Found out from Shannon that they actually followed us for a period of time.
I did not know that.
I usually leave that part out. Basically, it was the same concept. I was like, oh my gosh, you're so good looking. But I was on a mission. I was like, come to Spain with girlfriend, kiss Spanish men. And he was so tan at the time. Like, I was like, look at that hot, can I cuss on this podcast? Look at that hot ass Spanish guy right there. Like, So I was just like, where are they headed? But they were really booking it. And so me being me and Marissa not being me. Marissa's like the calmest, coolest, chillest girl in the world and gorgeous. And I was like, all right, let's go. Let's walk that direction. She's like, but where we're going to dinner is the exact opposite way. I was like, who cares, Marissa? And she's like, what are we gonna do if they turn around? I go, what happens?
Wasn't it like you were like saying, I'm single. I'm in my single era.
Yes.
Like I'm not looking for a man.
Correct.
I'm not looking for
and
Spanish men.
Just kiss a bunch of boys. And so anyways, we followed behind him and she was like, what's the plan here? I was like, you know how it goes. We made eye contact. He'll turn around, he'll see us, he'll be like, where are you guys headed? I'll be like, hola, and then we'll just start talking. And then
hola, yeah. Hola. You're not going to kiss very many Spanish men saying hola.
Hola. Anyways, that's not how it went because they didn't turn around because they were going so fast, and then it was just embarrassing.
We had no idea. I had no idea.
He had no idea that we were behind them. Eventually, me and Marissa, we called it. We said, time of death. Let's just go back the actual direction we need to go, and they never looked at us.
So we went for dinner. They went for dinner separately. We then went for a drink because it was the first night. We had one drink and we were umming and ahhing. Oh, should we have another one? And in Spain it was like 1 a.m. But you have dinner at 10 p.m. So we're like, no, let's just go back to the hotel, get some sleep, and seize the day tomorrow.
It wasn't 1 a.m. It was like 11.
No, it wasn't. It was remember because we tried to go into more bars and everyone was
shut.
It was
okay,
fine, 12:30. I don't know. I wasn't. Those details don't matter so much. But then my friend and I left to go back to our hotel, and he was desperate for a drink from a supermarket, just wanted to grab one for the way home. So we took like a little detour to find this supermarket. And then just before we got to this supermarket, grocery store for Americans who might not understand what that is, I then see Shannon and Marissa again on the other side of the road. And I'm like, in my head, wait, that's that hot girl from earlier. And so my friend hears me saying that out loud and is like, oh, whatever, I'm getting my drink, stay here. So I then was outside, saw Shannon and Marissa, waved like a little bit because Marissa waved. She was the first person to wave. Shannon didn't. And then they came across the road and then we just started talking. And obviously I thought Shannon was this like a Spanish redhead, right?
Spray tan was spray tanning.
The last nationality in my mind was American. So as soon as they opened their mouths, and she was like, "Hey y'all," and I was like, "No way, you American? That is wild." And then
Southern American, And then he was like, "Hello," and I was like, "You're British? Like you don't have crooked yellow teeth. This is confusing."
So we were both a bit sort of dumbfounded at that. And then my friend came out, and we were just like, "Hey, should we just grab a drink?" Yeah, sure, why not? We go for a drink, go into this seedy bar, knock back a tequila. My friend then goes home because he doesn't care. He's got a girlfriend. He wants to get to sleep. And then Shannon was like, well, why don't you come back to my hotel and we can just have a drink at the bar. And I was like, okay, sure.
Anyways, that was the way. But it's just crazy because if you've never been to Barcelona is set up like a grid.
And it's big.
It's
huge,
big and
so many streets.
A lot of tiny little alleyways. Anytime I tell the story and people know that, it's always really validating to me when they're like, oh my God, and in Barcelona, that's like tiny little streets. And so we talk often about how one little thing would have happened because we didn't see each other at a restaurant where we were both there collectively for an hour, we passed each other on the street within seconds 2 times, right? So like whenever I wanted to get gelato and Marissa was like, oh, I really can't be asked to get gelato. And I was like, please, like that mattered because if we hadn't, we would have been too fast.
Or
and
you guys
seen.
being on time for dinner. Or
yeah,
like him not wanting a drink.
Exactly, or if we hadn't ordered dessert, or like little things like this.
It all matters.
It's crazy, right?
It's
crazy.
awesome. It shows, I mean, I believe in something obviously greater than us. That those things that happen in life, it's like there can't be.
No, 100%.
You can't explain it any other way than meant to be.
I feel like in my mind when I look back at it, I'm like, the universe was like, here you go, and then we didn't do anything, and it was like, oh, for fuck's sake. We got to make that happen again, and it was like,
he can't. It's fun.
And so.
And then it's an unbelievable story. It's Kyle and I met at a coffee shop in the middle of Nashville.
Yes, theirs is so cute
and
too.
And ours is similar to that. And I always say like it'll be like 12 years after we met, and I'm like, you know what? It really stresses me out to think if I hadn't gone there that morning.
I know, I get anxiety.
I mean, I was there eating pancakes and drinking mimosas because I was just like floating around. And Kyle was there. He doesn't even wear glasses. He had on glasses and a pencil. He was like working on something with a pencil. And we randomly
of course, he's writing with a pencil.
Yes, a mechanical one, 0.5 lead. And I sneezed, and he was like, "Bless you if that was a sneeze." And I mean, what if I hadn't sneezed? What if I hadn't sat in that seat?
It's all the things.
And like he never went to that coffee shop, and it's just no one meets like that anymore.
No,
and that's the
like
thing,
70s.
like the romanticizing of that is just so amazing. And look, people meet on dating apps and are so in love and have the most amazing relationships and stuff. But there's this, I feel like, even in that environment, when you're on dating apps and stuff, there's this kind of like layer cast over you of these expectations of what dating should be like, and if you tick this box and this box, whereas when you meet people completely organically, none of that's there, so it's just so fluid.
So true. I never really thought about
so
that.
real.
Yeah,
no
and
expectations.
I think that people misrepresent themselves because people don't know themselves sometimes. So when they're describing themselves on an app, of course they're making themselves look better.
So true.
But like there is just an initial magnetic attraction that you just can't have if you're not in person. And I love social media, and I love all of the things that the world is today with all the apps and everything. But I also love the way that we met. And I wish that like everyone could have that magnetic pull, whether they've met initially on a dating app or whether they're on the street in Barcelona.
Yeah, it was very magnetic. I feel like people ask that sometimes, like, was it awkward? Like, cause like, were you Marissa like, oh, I call him, and I was like, no, first of all, he's not her type. But second of all, like the magnetic pull was just it was just there. It was just so present. Yeah.
And I think as well, it doesn't, if you are single or you haven't met your person and you're, stressing about, I genuinely believe as well, the harder you look, the less you'll find your person,
I agree with you
to an extent. And so I think both of us were in this position as when we were in Barcelona I was over dating. I come out of, a couple of relationships that didn't work. I didn't care. I wasn't looking for anything. And it's literally when it like plants the seed for you.
Too.
And
God comes in. Yeah. I had just been like ghosted, and then I was just like, I was at a really cool point in my life where I had so much good going on for myself, but like dating, I just like could not get a handle on. And I think there's that, like, you have to put yourself out there. You, of course, like, maybe get on an app, maybe go somewhere where you think you're going to meet singles. But when you are really putting out desperate energy, that's what will find you and come back to you, and like, or just like propel people away from you. And I think that's kind of what I was putting out there for a while. And I finally just like shook the stench off me, and I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. Because I really was like, I can't have one more guy ghost me. I can't have one more guy be weirdly obsessed with me and me be like, I'm not into you. I can't do it anymore. So I'm just done, and I'm just gonna have fun.
How old are you when you met, both of you?
We were the same age, 28.
Oh yeah,
because I love it that you were 28 because everybody gets really stressed about their like 24, and because they're from southern states too, and they're like, well, I always thought I'd be married with my first kid by 30, and I'm like, you have got to get that line out.
100%.
It's not the world anymore.
Shannon lied about her age though when we met.
Oh, you said you were younger or older?
She thought I was. It was brilliant. It was in my head. I was like, is this a red flag or is this quite funny?
No, because I told you immediately. I told you I lied immediately. Well, because
the next day, it took the next day. We were talking about our age, and she just goes, by the way, I lied about my age. And I was like, why?
What was the age that you made yourself that night?
He was 23 or something. Like, I'm telling you, just great skin, boyish charm. Like, you just, like, to me, I was like, I actually said to Marissa, like, that, like, they're probably little models or something. Like, I really thought you were so much younger. So when you asked me how old I was, because I just was having fun and we were just in Barcelona and I just thought this won't lead to anything. This would never be my husband. I was like, I said I was 27, even though I was 28. Like, why did I do that?
That's not that bad, but that is funny.
It's even weirder though.
That's even more weird. That was the thing that was so. I was like, she did a year. I was like, what's the difference?
28 felt like really close to 30. So I was just like 27. And then he was like, I was like, what about you? He's like, oh, right, I'm 28. And I was like, dang it. And I was like,
that would have been,
Oh. And then the next day he said something about like, well, because I'm 28. Well, when you're 28. And I was like, well, sorry, actually, it's a crazy story. I am 28.
Crazy thing.
So bizarre.
I lied. Oh my God. That's awesome. Okay. So here's the part that I don't know this part of it, but I remember on social media, once you guys were dating and you did like the hard launch of the dating, that you said something like, everybody said there's no way that this will work because you live in different places.
Very different places.
You come from different worlds. And so how did it work? Did it just immediately work? Were you like how did that next part go after you met?
Shannon came to London in 3-4 weeks.
We planned a month out.
Yeah.
We planned a month out. We were like, well, he had said to me, like, this is not, we ended up spending like a week together in Barcelona, like by each other. Mm-hmm. We had the coolest friends with us, thank God, who weren't like, come on, mate. Like, and then Marissa was like, live your truth, babe. And I'm like, you're the best ever. And we were just inseparable. And then I kind of just thought it'd be this, summertime fling that I'd never see him again, but I'd be married with 3 kids to some Southern guy, just thinking about my British lover, like just for the rest of my life, like pining over him. And he said to me when we left, like, I don't know if I'm speaking for both of us or just myself, but I just don't feel like this is just like a holiday fling. And I was like, literally every word I ever wanted to hear.
It was funny because Shannon kept saying to me, oh, are we gonna continue seeing each other? Is this just gonna be a holiday fling? And
did I?
Yeah, you did. You had
Sounds a bit desperate, actually.
No.
Maybe I didn't shake all the stench off.
It was sweet. It was endearing because in my mind I was like, well, I mean, this is going fantastic so far, so why wouldn't we?
You have less to lose when the stakes are this almost kind of like, I don't know how to explain, like they're so low stakes because like what are the actual chances you would end up in a long distance relationship with the man that lives in London and I live in Nashville? So like I think I was just more fine to say things that I was actually thinking.
Put yourself out there.
Yeah.
Some people like want to make such a game of everything. And I'm like, y'all, if you play a game,
exactly,
they're falling in love with a different version of you.
Right.
And it's just like
he said early on he didn't like to play games. Maybe I was just like, okay, I'll be honest.
No,
okay, let's stop the game.
No, but I could tell you being honest, I really appreciated the honesty.
Yeah.
Like you had nothing to lose or
we planned to see each other a month later and then we talked continuously, obsessively, as much as the time zone and time change would allow us. We FaceTimed every single day. And then it was like 2 weeks later and, like, don't give me a credit card. So I was just like, I was like, you know what if I actually, what does it look like? I don't know, 2 weeks from now to see you. And he was like, yeah. And actually I was a little nervous to ask that because I was like, do I seem desperate? But he was like, please. And I was like, okay. So then I flew to London 2 weeks later. And
didn't you have to, there was something you said to one of your friends about making sure that I wasn't a serial killer.
Because I landed
before you came and stayed with me. She landed in London and was like, wait, what happens if this guy is just like so different?
No chemistry
like
in
holiday
his homeland.
mode, London mode, completely.
What if he lives somewhere? I mean, I'd seen his house a little bit in his flat in the background of FaceTimes. Maybe I'd asked him to show me around a little bit, but like, I don't know, like you are.
It is a risk.
At the time that show was out, Tinder Swindler, I'm just like, what? And I had this moment where I texted Taylor. I was like in the airport and I was like rolling my carry-on and I was like, yeah, that's right. I could just pack to carry-on. And I was like, oh no. What if this goes really bad? So I had only planned to stay there for 3 days. I flew to London for just 3 days, which a lot of people would be like, that's no time at all to even get used to the time change or anything. But I was like, let's just like make sure this is great because the month later trip we had planned was like for a week and a half. And so I was like, let me just come for like a couple days. And then it was just, I feel like that trip was just kind of game over.
We're both in fortunate positions that we have our own businesses and we have
and you have the flexibility.
Right? Because that was huge and that worked out for the best. And although flying to America, they grill you a lot more when you come here than when Shannon was coming into the UK. Oh my gosh, yeah.
They're like, welcome, ma'am, America.
Here. They were like, what are you doing here? Why are you here? How long? Yeah.
You'd think that they would want you. I like you being here, James.
It was definitely a process on that front, but then it all worked out.
Okay, and then how far after the Barcelona first meeting did you get engaged? A year and a half? A year?
We met in May. we got engaged in September the next year.
Year and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a little bit of a loophole.
under.
We actually got married a little bit before that.
I knew that. I didn't know. That's public knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People
Okay.
made sure of that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you were in the U.S. though within a year though. Like you guys were like, okay, we're doing this. This is a serious relationship.
It went fast. Thinking back, your dad just said something recently. He was like, wow, I think I was like spending Christmas with them this past year. And he was just like, wow, to think. And now it doesn't feel fast. Anything that happens from this point forward, it's like, oh, all that's normal. Like we want to start a family one day. Like all of it feels like the good, like things that make sense. But if you really think about meeting the day we met to the day he lived in our home in Nashville, it wasn't that long. It was a year.
Year and several months.
And we probably saw each other in person 7 or 8 times.
But that's like, the thing is, and it goes back to that whole point of, playing games. And there's like, when you just know. And when you're just open from the outset and you just are fully open about your feelings and what you want to do. And of course, long distance, being in different countries does speed things up a little bit because you have to make decisions about where you want to live because you can't do long distance forever. And that was a big thing for us.
Also in so much conversation too.
Yes, it's all you're doing.
Which is great because I think when people are dating here and it's just having fun and you're drunk at a bar and stuff, like it speeds things up. I feel like I've had long distance relationships. Yeah. And it just feels like, hey, if we're gonna do
you have
this,
to get to the nuts and crannies a bit quicker.
Yeah, I was like, if we're gonna keep putting, transcontinental flights on our credit cards, let's make sure this is legit, okay?
Yeah.
But there was a couple times I had thoughts where I like asked my best friend Taylor, like, is this crazy that we're doing this? And she goes, yeah, if he lived in Germantown, that would be a bit crazy. But he lives in London, so no, have those conversations.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so when you started dating, I love an intercultural relationship. I love it too because you think, oh, okay, like a lot of European countries, they're English speaking, like they're fairly similar to us. They're not. I mean, I've traveled a lot also. I studied at Oxford and we did a continental tour. And like I did Europe several times and I love Europe, but it's definitely not the same. It's very different. It's fundamentally very different too.
So different.
And so that's what I'm curious of too, because as you're dating, you have to run into cultural, like not just you say this different and you call this something different. Like that's like the funny stuff. But there are fundamental things that I feel like Europeans are very different on than Americans.
Totally.
Yeah, I think a big one which got me into a bit of trouble in our relationship is in Europe, we're a little bit more kind of like liberal with not wearing clothes. Especially,
oh my god!
Especially in London. Similarly, Shannon told me, okay, it's a little bit like this in New York, but in London, because the houses are so close together, you're just getting changed like naked in your window, and your neighbor might be opposite, and they might see you, and you're like, oh hey, you don't wave, that'd be weird. But yeah, it's just like it's just more.
Imagine just how many buildings they have, like in the sense of New York, like when I lived in New York very briefly, like if my shades were open and I had to change really quick, I thought to myself briefly, well, someone
people can see you.
Someone miles and miles away in that building, miles and miles away. If he was looking at me at that exact moment, he saw my boobs. But like you kind of do just like whatever. Like you can't keep track with them all. So it's like that must just be their concept. But
got me in trouble when I came here because we moved into our house and we have neighbors.
And it's subdivision-y.
We live
kind of like
in a neighborhood, a quaint neighborhood in southern Tennessee.
And like sometimes I would walk into the kitchen in the morning and maybe grab some water or whatever, and I would just be naked.
Because, as a jaybird.
Just because, what does that mean?
I don't know.
I don't even know what a jaybird is either.
Yeah, is that an American expression or what?
Yeah, but it's saying that I don't even know.
But I'm not like sitting there like sipping my coffee just naked in front of the window. I'm walking in, I'm getting something, I'm walking back out.
Just walking in,
Shannon, even in our own bedroom, I'm like, our blinds are open. I'm like, Shannon,
there's children around us.
Yes, but people aren't looking out of their window in our house.
I don't know, James. They might be.
All I said is if my father saw a good-looking, strapping 30-year-old man next door who really just kept frequently having his junk on display, and his 13-year-old, 14-year-old daughter was nearby the windows, my dad would be like, hey, buddy, you mind just not doing, like, close your blinds or get dressed in your bedroom? Like, my daughter could see, like, and I know it's of no malintent.
Didn't quite say it like that when she was speaking to me. She was like, are you naked in the kitchen again?
Yeah, I mean, I was I really just churched it up for this podcast.
I didn't realize that was a big cultural thing.
Huge. And I think even, I mean, you go to England in terms of, I mean, we're not in Europe anymore, but in terms of being in Europe is also they're pretty conservative. You go to like Spain or Italy, they're walking around naked in public.
They
don't wear little tops, like little bikini tops, and they're 10,
but it's that kind of
running around.
It's just different.
It's that culture. But here I notice people are just a lot more, nakedness is
just
rigid.
A lot more clothed.
Yeah.
Just more clothed. That's the cultural difference. We're just more clothed.
That's a good one.
That is a good one. I'm trying to think. It's a lot of language barriers.
So do you feel? Yeah, a lot of language barriers. What do you feel like is something in your culture that like Americans could use some more of besides the nudity?
It's a good question. I think like eating things like fries and stuff. Americans are very fingery. Lots of. Shannon could not believe that I would eat my fries with a fork and dip them in ketchup. Shannon's there just
pizza with a fork. It's freaky.
Yeah, I cut my pizza with a fork. Like there's a lot of hands and in mouth in America, which is it. Sometimes I will eat fries now with my hands, and I feel like
these crazy guys.
Feel like a monster.
An animal.
But my issue is I lick my fingers at the table. Shannon hates that.
Oh my gosh, he literally. I think
that's why I use a fork.
I think this is just a man thing though, but like he will literally comically be. I'm like, that's crazy.
I never do that.
That's crazy.
I never go.
It's flu season.
Like
that's crazy.
Like I'm on a cartoon. I go like this. I go secretly.
It's sick. You know what?
That's a good one. And I have noticed that. And like now that I think about it. Could we eat pizza with a fork and a knife? Would it make sense? Like, yeah, it would make sense.
I choose not to.
I think maybe that's quite British because if you go to Italy, depending where you are in Italy, you eat pizza with your hands. It's very, that's a good one. It's very,
I think portion sizes, I've learned a lot. And now I'm actually, and I really don't mean to be on some like healthy high horse because listen, I got a bag of goldfish right beside me. Like love food.
You made a lot of changes though.
Yeah, definitely.
You're in the Coach James Club for sure.
My Coach James Club era.
We came here. We had to just get a few things.
No, you never pushed me, which is nice. Like he never was pushy. I would have my personality. Maybe he knew that. I would have been like, like I would not have liked if you pushed it on me. But I kind of had to just like find my way there.
But when you have a partner that like makes you better or that is doing something that's better in their life, it's inspirational. It inspires you because
elevates
you're
you
close to that person.
Absolutely,
that's the best way to get in.
It's really nice.
Toe into the water.
But portion sizes now, and again, I don't mean to sound like I'm on some high horse, but I actually can find myself grossed out by American portion sizes these days because it's just it really is so wasteful. Yeah. Like it's actually so crazy. And then also if it's not wasteful and you grew up in a household like I did where you eat everything on your plate. And then I really found myself always feeling like, oh God, you finish a meal and you're like, oh my God, throw up. Like, and of course I never did, but you just are like, you shouldn't feel that way after you eat a beautiful meal.
And it's really like when you get accustomed to it as I did. And then it becomes kind of like, I eat a lot anyway, because like I'm a bigger guy and work out a lot. So it kind of gets used a bit more, but I found it insane how many people are walking out of restaurants with bags with the food that they didn't finish.
Bags.
Like you do not see that in Europe. And
if you ask for a takeaway bag, they're like, oh, you need a takeaway? Sure.
Yeah.
But also, did you like it?
Like
was it okay?
You that before you checked, you needed to go box. Like
here.
It's an automatic thing.
Yeah. Whereas, you never see it.
I didn't know that.
In the UK, they would ask if you liked your food. Did you like your food? Like, it's weird that you're not eating it here.
Yeah. Is that okay? Yeah. Because you didn't eat your whole entire plate.
Yeah.
But is it? But like, because I was trying to think, like, do they make the portion sizes bigger here so that they can justify charging higher prices, or like, what is it? Because
I think it's just what Americans are used to, and I think America has a lot of things in excess, and that is just one of them. Like the portion sizes is in excess, and
I couldn't believe the size of the cars here when I arrived.
Well, that's just
cars
funny.
and the house. Isn't everything bigger?
Like, I mean, because you just have more space, but just
that would bode well for you. Europe was probably a little too small for you, wasn't it?
But I like my little sports cars. I feel like I'd get absolutely mowed over if I drove one of those around here.
I mean, when we first got an Uber Black in New York City, he was like, oh my God.
Like a bus.
Oh, he was like, this is for the president. And I was like, it's a Chevy Suburban.
Yeah. Like, you just don't, it sounds so silly, but to me it was just, the cars just drive. It took me a couple of weeks to just get used to being surrounded by like these huge trucks. You know,
What do you feel like they could learn from our culture?
I think like overall demeanor. You say to me all the time,
100%.
like people will come up to him in the gym or something and say like, "Oh, dude, like you look great," or "You're cute." Well, I don't know what guys say to dudes in gyms, but someone will say something and he'll walk over with the biggest smile on his face and he's like, "That guy just said I've got great arms or something."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh, nice." And he's like, "That would have never happened in the UK."
To me, it was one of the biggest positives about moving here. And I think having spoken to people, it's definitely a Southern thing.
Yeah.
But also, I
Yes.
would also say generally Americans, they're just a lot more like complimentary of each other.
Yeah.
People chat to each other, even if you're in the grocery store, just, you know, everyone's like very friendly here, and it really makes you walk away like with this like really like good energy inside of you, and you can feel it, and you just don't. And I think it's because, you know, London in particular is a very multicultural place now. If you sit in a restaurant, you know, 80% of people in that restaurant probably aren't going to be English.
Yeah.
And that obviously with the different cultures means that people don't speak as much, but it's so infectious here. Sometimes like yesterday I went to the grocery store and picked up some food, and it's really funny. For some reason, everyone in the South thinks I'm Australian. And this older lady, bless her, she must have been in her 60s. And I'm like paying, and she goes, "Australian?" And I thought, here we go. I went, "No, I'm actually from London." And she went, "Oh, I love that accent." You know, and it just, but like, you just don't get that in
I can't
in
take
the
them
UK.
anywhere. We go to
That's right.
FedEx or
It's so
something.
nice.
They're
Everyone-
like, "Say that again." And
Yeah,
I'm like,
say
"Oh,
that
well, we gotta go."
Everyone, most people, at least everyone I met, everyone's very well mannered and friendly to each other, which I think is so nice.
That is so nice. I do agree that it is more so a Southern thing, but I do think in the U.S., I do think that people are
I
are
agree.
more like that.
I agree.
Do you? But I also feel like we like your types here a lot, versus sometimes whenever I would go places like I would try and practice my French in France, and they would speak English.
Well,
back
that's
to
your
me.
problem. You were
Like
in France.
The French.
You go to
don't like
Mexico
me.
and you say literally like, "Hola, ¿cómo estás?" They're like, "Oh," they're like so
Yeah.
happy and thrilled that you're trying to speak their language when they've learned ours.
Yeah.
So I think they find it like so kind and respectful that we're like trying to speak Spanish.
Yes.
James speaks fluent French.
Not
When we
fluent. Not fluent.
That's
Really
but
well.
so many
I can get
people
by.
Speak multiple languages. I feel like
In
Because
France, they literally look at him in the cabs like, "Please stop speaking to us in French." Like they're just grumpy.
No, yeah.
The
That
French
was
are
my
grumpy.
Experience there. I love that. I love that takeaway. I love both of the takeaways. I feel like that people don't take things as personally sometimes. Like your sense of humor is like you guys can say things to each other that Americans can't say to each other.
True.
Americans, I think, are more sensitive, or lately are more sensitive to things.
Well, I just think, I mean, the British humor, we're very kind of sarcastic, and we take the do you know take the Mickey? Is that a thing? Do you know
Means
that?
like take the piss.
Yeah, we take the piss out of each other a lot. That's like our banter. We're constantly just like digging. Whereas, sometimes when I've been hanging out with the guys here that I've met, if we're like playing golf or whatever, and there's banter, like I've grown up in we're quite quick and we're quite witty. So someone will say something, I'll fire it back quite quickly. Straight over their heads, and no one laughs, and I'm like, "Wait, am I not funny? That was really funny." But then, so I've learned now I have to wait 5 seconds, and then I'll say it, and then I get the laughs.
Yes, I love like that. I think that you and Kyle get along very well because you have a lot of similar beliefs in a lot of things. But also, he with his friends from high school, who he's still really close with, they just roast each other.
That's
all
how
the
they
time.
are.
And I'm just like, golly, like he really said that to you because it's kind of true. Like, does that not hurt your feelings?
That also I think comes from, and James, it's such a green flag. I think in a man, if you're looking for men in your life and you find that they've had the same friends since like high school, and James went to boarding school, so I guess that's kind of like middle school age. Like the same core, you get away with a lot more when you've known someone since they were 11. You can really roast. Yeah.
Agreed. Okay, so that cultural differences, that's one thing, and I love that. I think those are great takeaways. And I know that you grew up in two very different families too.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, like whether you're both a couple in the U.S., a British couple, whatever, like, you know, I love it when people come from two like totally different walks of life. Like, and you find a way to come together, because I do think that the diversity in families can be a really rich thing if you're not so like rigid about it. If you're not so like, well, this is the way that we do it here, and this is how our family is, so this is how I want our family to be.
Yeah.
I feel like you guys have taken the best of your families and like meshed them together. Like you love the difference in like the way that her family and their like house, and they're all just like funny, and I love watching all those videos.
Oh yeah.
And then you're going to like in his fancy house, and they're
Very
in Marsha's
posh.
doing all of the beautiful things, and they're just very like, I love that. I want to know like, what are the things that you love about each other's family that you'll take into your own family like one day? Like, what are those things?
I think James and I, like you said, very different. Like we grew up very, very differently. And then I was never worried after meeting and spending a lot of time with his family and knowing my family, and then James, same vice versa. I had a funny feeling that they would mesh really well, because outside of like how they grew up, where they grew up, all that stuff, our families both have really similar core values, and they have really similar warmth, which is so important to me. You know, like, here I'm going, meeting my future British mother-in-law. Like, that doesn't scream warm, you know? Like, she's posh, she's beautiful, she's a Pilates instructor. Like, I'm scared. Yes. And his family is so warm, and they're so welcoming and inviting. And that's how my family is. But that's not hard to believe, because they're Southern people that are like, everyone's welcome, come on down. And so
when I first met her family and her parents, I was like, oh, this is so fun. I was like, I hadn't experienced anything like it, you know, like as a Brit, I'd been to New York and I'd been to LA, like the classic just East Coast, West Coast. It's
so different.
And I was just in the heart of South Carolina, just with the, you know, the food, the language.
They're rednecks,
like,
you can say.
It was just, the visor, the ice clinking in the jar, sipping the straw, like sipping champagne through the straw.
Dale Earnhardt, legends never die. Like,
it was unbelievable. The country music in the background. I was like, wow, this is, it's so special.
But also, like, you were open-minded, that you just loved that and fell in love with it. Instead of just seeing the differences, like, I feel like some people are like, oh, God, you do it like this. But it's like, it's such a beautiful thing, like how different people are in the world.
Yeah, and I think it makes you realize that it doesn't matter, you know, where you're from, like what your beliefs are. Like the common ground is, if you were just a welcoming, nice person, like you will get on like a house on fire.
Yes.
And of course, you have to, you know, like I respect, you know, how the Fords live, and, you know, Shannon respects how my family do things, of course. But I think, it's really kind of special when, such like different people come together, and it's still so great. Although it is funny, because when we had Christmas at our place, not this Christmas, but the previous Christmas, that was the first time our families met all in one house. And that was like, you needed a translator. Like my dad didn't have a clue what your dad was saying, and vice versa. Like, it was hilarious.
That's awesome.
I think things that we would bring from both of our respective families to like our family would be, his family is very, very adamant about family spending time with each other. My family, we were always just at home with each other, because we really didn't have like the time or like the means to go really anywhere else. So I like how his family, they have every reason to not like stay very close. They could do their own thing. They could be here, they could be there, they could go to Bali, they could do whatever, and they really make the time to go on trips together, not just dinners. Like they go on family trips together, and it's really special how you guys keep that closeness. And then with my family, I think just in general, the welcomingness, and my parents are very go with the flow, you know, like
which is a great quality.
You gotta,
because you guys both have a lot of siblings too. I love a laid back, go with the flow.
When
my family was laid back and go with the flow. We were also very intentional, though, even though we grew up on the same farm, we had like quarterly meetings about life and legacy and like investments and just like,
I love that legacy.
But we were really casual too. Like,
that's great.
So it's a combo of the two, but both great qualities, you
right?
know?
Yeah,
for sure. I love that. I love it too, because you guys, not only did you come from different places and different types of families, but you had really different backgrounds too. James, you went to boarding school, you're a philosophy major, like now you're into health and fitness, which I love. You know, you go for political science, right? How funny.
Mine's all over the map.
I mean, and Kyle are similar. Me and James are similar in a lot of weird ways.
College dropout.
Career.
My political career is soaring.
And then you went on Very Cavallari.
Yes.
And I love it how they made you the villain on the show, because you are definitely not a villain in knowing you for all these years. at all.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm like, is it the red hair? Is it like what is it? Why did they make you a villain?
We needed to make good TV, and I was willing to take the risk because I was going to be more embarrassed. We weren't like a show that had been on for, it wasn't like I joined Southern Charm.
Yeah.
Like that show's not going to fail, right? No matter what new cast members they get, whatever happens.
Right.
This was a new show that got picked up, and this was the piloted first season. And they basically told us, and Kristen did too, and she was like, we need a splash. And she had said at the time, like, listen, I was the villain and it worked out pretty good for me. And I was like, I volunteer as tribute. Like, I was just like, it's fine. Like, I'll do it. I'll ruffle feathers. I'll say stuff. And a lot of it was manufactured. A lot of it was because I was a really bad employee. So haven't had another boss since. But yeah, it worked fine. And I was able to compartmentalize it. Whereas I think if people go on
that's the key.
People go on a TV show and don't realize they're going to get a bad edit. And then they watch the show like, so excited I'm going to be a star. And then you're like, like, I'm the villain. I knew I was going to be, to the point that I literally told my friends and family, like, by the way, like, I'm the villain. So that was easier to process for me.
And you didn't care, though, because people will attack the villain. People want to, that don't know the villain in real life, or, they're just seeing you through a TV. Did you have thick skin? Were you really able to compartmentalize it? Because
no, it was
that
hard.
Would be hard. And you were in your early 20s. I mean, you were young.
23, and also just wasn't in this world. Like now, if you're in this world, like people that are already influencers that go on The Bachelor, they might have a thicker skin than most because they just like already experienced the world of the internet and trolls and whatever. But no, I mean, like my teeth were trending on Twitter, like, and I'm not gonna lie, like they were a bad set of veneers. So like they had a point.
But still, that's terrible.
But that's
I could
crazy.
Not recover from
like
that.
I was 23 years old and hashtag Shannon's
It's
teeth was trending on Twitter. I was like, oh no, like.
When I watched the show, I remember you saying something like, I look at a piece of kale and I have kale in my teeth or something.
I do.
But you owned it and like leaned into it, but you just never know how people are going to take it. And
yeah.
run with it. And then it's like, okay, you took it a little too far.
Yeah.
I have learned through the years, but also before I got on social media, because I did the Miss America system and then I did reality TV with Amazing Race.
Right.
I don't go on the message boards. I'm not going to do, I do not let anyone in my head that I would not let in my house anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not going to read certain things. I'm just not going to,
it's so true.
I can't ever forget it. Michael Phelps once was like, I can remember every single mean thing anyone has ever said to me. And I was like, I feel you. So I don't even let it in.
Yeah, you can't, like, if you fight with the pigs, you're going to get muddy. Like, you can't, there's some saying, like, that's right.
But it launched your career.
Yeah, it did. It was great. And honestly, staying away from the negativity, which I've spoken about this before a little bit, it's hard because innately as humans, or at least me, the way I'm designed, I have this, like, that your ego is kind of interested because you're like, oh my gosh, even if I were to look up like hashtag Shannon on Twitter when things are bad, there's still this part of you that's like, wait, they're all talking about me. Like I've never had anyone talk about me before.
Me.
And then it's like,
at all.
then it's all bad. And you're like, was that worth it? Like to see that they're all like talking about you, but was it worth it? Because now when I know something is a place of not like kindness, I just don't go near it.
Yeah,
like I
but
just
you learned
don't.
that.
Yeah. You have to maybe just like, some people are lovely and never had to deal with that. Like Taylor and Anna Grace and some of my friends are like, oh, I never went on a message board because I just know it's mean. Whereas I went through a phase where I was like always checking them. And then one day you wake up and you're like, that's insane behavior. Like, get out of there. And so then you do, and you're so much happier.
Different people are different. And the fact that you could take that and still live your life. And I remember you saying one time, you're like, I felt like I had to get off of it because I was starting to like read stuff and try and prove them wrong.
Totally.
Because all the stuff on there is not correct.
Totally.
I mean, every once in a while they'll get something right, like that you guys had gotten married because it's not legal talk.
Right.
But I mean, most of it is just they don't know you, and you know that's just totally untrue.
Right, and
it's like you can't control it. You want to. That's why I can't do it, because I would want to go after every person and be like, hey, that's wrong. Let's meet up.
Yeah.
That's wrong. You wouldn't like me if you.
But
it's
another thing as well. Is like you just don't owe an explanation to anyone really.
He reminds me of that all the time.
Ever. Like you don't even people that DM you, hey, just wanted to check. Like you don't owe them a reply. You don't owe them anything. Just it's just like that's where you keep the peace. You're just like,
yes.
He's made me so much better about it.
You're good at that though. Men are better at that.
True.
Yeah, I think also like Michael Phelps thing, like I've definitely I have read some bad things about me in the past that I don't think could be any lower. So now I'm like, anything above that, it's like, it doesn't matter. Yeah, I'm like, I've seen the worst. So like,
no, but remember when everybody thought that you were a short king? You were pretty.
Yeah, that was actually
so funny.
That
wasn't
even like mean, and that just drove me crazy because I was like, guys, I'm not 5'10".
That's like a manly thing.
I'm
That must be
6'3".
a man thing. But when he would come to my shows, it must have really taken the internet by storm though, because he would come to my shows and people would meet him, never failed. They'd always go, "Oh my God, you're so tall!"
Every time.
And so funny,
by the way,
you give off tall energy. Maybe because I knew you in real life before I really knew you online.
He's not so tall, by the way. He's 6'2", 6'3".
Yeah,
I don't
he
know.
is tall. He's very tall.
But people would meet him and be like, "Wow,"
6'3" is
because they
tall.
really thought he was
But you
short.
look taller than 6'3". I remember one time going in the Gucci store and they were like, Shannon and James just like, because they knew that we were friends, Shannon and James just like, he is so tall. How tall is he? And I was like, I don't know. I think like 6'7" or 6'8" or something.
I need to get this spread all over the internet because I'm sick of it. It's because like not every gym guy, but like if you're, if you take your top off and you're on a camera, like weirdly, a lot of gym guys are quite short.
Yes,
that's why
I
they're
would
quite
agree with that.
snacky, right? Just
Yeah.
generally. So it's
I would
like
agree with that.
it's actually you don't get very many tall kind of bigger gym guys.
That is so funny you brought that up. That
I remember that.
That was such a thing.
I laughed out loud at that because he was just
Yeah.
so like.
Because then I asked my audience, and it was just like messages just saying like, because
They
I
had
said,
no
how tall
idea.
do you think I am? Like 5'10", 5'9", 5'10". I was
And
like,
then it
this
got
is-
in my head too, because I was at that stage in my life where I was looking at stuff and I was like, babe, are you sure you're 6'2", 6'3"? He's
Where's the
like,
measuring?
he's like,
"You got a tape
yes.
out?" And I'm like, see, I am.
That's a great.
But
story.
Shannon's not. I mean, you're not. The thing is because when Shannon wears heels, like Shannon's not short, so she's probably
you're
probably
tall.
what, like
How
5'9".
tall are you?
I'm 5'8", but people
That's tall.
that's
people meet
fairly
me
tall.
if I don't have heels on. People will meet me at my shows and they'll be like, "Oh, I thought you were gonna be way taller," because I'm always in heels. So when they meet me flat-footed, they're like, "Oh, I thought you were gonna be taller," because I think I
And they've seen
photograph
you-
and seem taller than I am.
And they've seen you
Yeah.
next to your short king. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
my short,
right.
my
And he's
short
only 5'9".
king.
I'm gonna edit all the part where you're 6'3" out, and I'm like, and you're next to him. He's 5'9".
And he's 5'9".
Everybody
so funny.
thinks I'm tall somehow, and I say it over and over and over. I am really short. I'm wearing this, but remember, I'm 5 feet tall, or I'm barely 5'1", if anything. And people still, they meet me and they're like, "I can't believe how small you are."
Yeah, but it's kind of like as a woman, it's different because you're like, oh, she's like small and petite,
Petite,
and
yeah.
whereas a guy, you're like, yeah, you don't want to be small and petite. Well, I don't.
Oh,
Anyway.
that was one of my favorites. I really loved that. So then you go from very cavallari, and then you do something which I love, which is reinvent yourself over and over. You're doing the podcast, you're doing social media stuff, you're doing the podcast, you're doing a comedy tour. And I remember too, when you came off of Very Cavallari, I'd already had a lot of success in social media, and I was like, I really like her. I don't know where did we even meet the first time?
I don't know, but you have been a champion of me for so long.
I've just
When
always really liked you.
feel like
She
I haven't deserved it.
Raves
Like
about
You do deserve
all the
it.
time.
I always say like Mal is like my fairy godmother. Like I don't know what it is. Like my parents know who Mallory is, even though
That's
I'm not
very
sure if you met.
sweet.
Just because I'm always like, they'll say, "Oh, well, how did you?" And I'm like, "Okay, so you know that girl I told you about that's like super famous and like way
Yeah,
more
she's
better
famous.
than me." She reached out to me and said that I could come do blah blah blah, or she would give me da da da, and she posted me, and oh my god, I got 5,000 followers because she posted me and just said like, "I love her stories," and all of her followers followed me. Like it was,
It's a beautiful
so
thing
kind.
about this space, though, because like you can lift people
You
up.
can.
You can lift, and two, I knew what they were doing with people that came off of reality TV shows that were stars.
Yeah.
Because you didn't know what the going rate for things were. I knew what the going rate, and I knew
So
they were going to come in. They were going to
true.
offer you 10% of what you actually deserved.
So true.
And I knew that you could sell things if you liked the product.
Yeah.
So I was like, let me introduce you to a few of my really good brands, and like so that you could have a bar that
Yeah.
was higher.
Yes.
Because everybody deserves it. But when I met you in real life, I just could tell that you were very genuine and you were authentic, and I really liked you. And I just couldn't see you get swept up with everybody else in the
Well,
dustpan.
it changed my life, and I mean that
Oh, it did
seriously
not change
because
your life.
it did. Because even when my parents would ask, like, "How'd you get that?" I'm like, "Well, because my friend told me I should get this." But then Mallory was like, "Girl, you better do
No!
this," and I'm like, "Oh," and you gave me that like confidence to
But
say
that's
like,
why, and that's very, just as like an outsider here, like it's the things that you've done for Shannon that she's told me about and stuff. It's so rare that you get, people who have platforms and a successful bringing others up. Like there's so many people that I've met, and I'm sure you guys have met as well, where it's kind of, you know, take, and there's not enough room for you here.
That's
and it's like
the big
this
thing, yeah.
And I'm like, and it's this whole thing of like what goes around comes around. And if you help people and you and have that personality and stuff, it comes back round, and it's just like there is enough room for people. There's plenty
room. Yeah,
you know?
The energy you put out is the energy you receive.
It does. And you know what, like after, you know, the influencer phase, and then I started my own businesses, I would take people to lunch and dinner, and I would give them all of my secrets about a sweatshirt company or a pajama company.
Yeah.
And those people sometimes would start a sweatshirt company or a pajama company, and people are like, oh my gosh, how do you feel about that? And I'm like, there's room for everyone.
Exactly.
I'm still going to be successful. I'm happy for them to be able to support their family.
Course.
And guess what? People are still buying my stuff.
Of
It
course.
is just not a... It's just not a contest.
Because you weren't the first person to create a sweatshirt, but your sweatshirt company is your own beautiful thing that has become this Mallory living fully moment that could not be replicated if they tried. So you don't mind giving those secrets or that information out because you're not scared of someone replicating it. You can't be. I don't think personally that what you've done can be replicated.
Well, but also like people lifted me up too. Like I can still remember in the first conversation that I was having, I started on YouTube. My friends, Alex and Michael, he was like, you should start a YouTube channel. And they had a huge YouTube channel. And he was like, come over, you can film one with Alex and I'll edit your video for you out of the kindness of his heart. No, he's not making any money. He's not, but they did that for me. And that changed my whole life.
Yeah.
That one little thing changed my whole life. And then like I would meet somebody who would tell me, Kendall that owns Stony Clover has been very good to me. Like a lot of the info that she's given me, Jamie Kern-Lima like has been a really great mentor to me. They have no dog in the fight.
Right.
And they just give me the information that helps me skip 4 spaces ahead.
Exactly.
And so I will always do that for other people. I would have done it before, but like it is life changing sometimes when people give you a cheat code. And it's
a
just,
beautiful thing.
It is.
To be able to, our livelihood is based on who we are personally. And obviously that's what all influencers should be, right? But not all influencers are genuine.
Right.
But it's a really, really wonderful thing when you can become successful for truly being yourself.
Yes.
And that's a brand, I don't worry. And I give a lot of like help to influencers as well, because I'm like, I am just genuinely never worried about the space being oversaturated, because the people that follow me for Shannon. And like, I just don't think anyone else out there is Shannon. So I don't mind. Like there's so much space for other people to be. And I'm such a fan of other influencers and for their own reasons.
Same.
Not because I see any of me in them, but because they're totally different. So like there's just so much space for everyone if you actually are being yourself to be successful.
Yes, and you can support other people's brands and ventures and everything. Like you know, you go with Bridget and you shoot her whole collection, even though you're talking about clothes all the time or like whatever it is. It is just, I don't know. It's a great thing. It's a great space. I think some people think that the influencer space is like everybody's like rotten or inauthentic and stuff. I'm like, in Nashville, actually, it's not like that.
No.
It's really great. And like, you know, that's why when I send out PR, which I never sent out PR, and then I was like, yeah, I want people to have these pajamas. When people are like, oh, I'm so sorry, I got this 2 weeks late, I didn't post it, sold out. Like I'm like, I do not send you things with an intention or something attached. I just put it out there. I want you to have those pajamas. Yeah. And if you never show them, that's fine.
Yeah.
You're my friend.
Exactly.
And that's fine. Okay. So then to you, James. So you were a philosophy major, which I feel like, why do I feel like everybody there is a philosophy major?
Well, because we walk around with our books
philosophical
and speak posh.
Sometimes you do. Sometimes he says stuff, and I'm like, "You think you're so profound?" Like
he's profound.
Like Kyle's Chinese prophecy today: a rolling stone doesn't grow moss.
He said, "I heard an old Chinese prophecy once that said, Mallory."
Listen, that was most of my degree. You just make stuff up, make it sound intelligent, and there you go. There you go.
Yeah, but I do love philosophy. I do love, James, you and I have this in common. We are thinkers. We like to listen to self-help books. We like to listen to specific podcasts. He said Shannon's listening to like trash in the shower, and he's out here listening to Tony Robbins. And
erotic novels in the shower, and there's me listening to, you know, how I can improve my
morning routine.
There's murder in there too. It's not all erotic. There's murder.
It's a great balance. But like I've not read a fiction book since high school.
And like I like switching off, and I do just, you know, sometimes like giving my brain nothing, but it's just
when
the
do you
way
do that,
I'm
do you
wired.
think?
I don't give my brain nothing.
When do you think you do that?
Like when we watch Mad Men before we go to sleep, that's me zoning out.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll watch TV and zone out.
It's because
too,
like even so in the health and fitness space that I'm in my 6 years of coaching, you realize that the main thing stopping people from reaching their goals, it's not another nutrition plan, it's not another training plan, it's not, going to the gym and stuff. It's how they think of themselves. It's their mindset, it's their identity. And the coaching that we do goes so much further than just telling you to eat a certain amount of calories and focus on a high protein diet and train 3 days a week. Like we genuinely get into the belly of people's kind of psyche and understand, right, what's holding you back, what's stopping you get from here to here. And that's where we see success. And it takes a little time sometimes, but you realize that it's most people's minds and their mindset that's stopping them from doing stuff. So when you can tap into that, whether it's from yourself or you're coaching other people to do it, you just step into this new space and you just unlock all this potential that you didn't even know was there. But it is, because everyone has it. You just need to tap into it.
I agree with that. I also feel like that philosophy major, certainly, like thinking and all the things that you probably learned getting that degree, probably helps you so much.
Yeah, because a lot of people go, wait, you study philosophy and now you're like talking about health and fitness.
I get it.
And I'm like, it's very, very linked.
It's very linked. Yeah. What is the thing that you feel like is the thing that pops up the most?
I think it's this, recently it's like this outcome versus identity goals. So a lot of people are like, I want to lose weight, I want to look good in a bikini, I want to eat right. These are all outcome focused.
Yeah.
And those are fine, but there's no point having that goal if the system that you have in place is not going to enable you to draw that gap to get there. And that's when you tap into the identity of someone. So, okay, so you're someone who wants to lose weight. Well, how does that person look and feel? Okay, that person, and you get them to think about this, like, I am someone who lifts weights. I am someone who prioritizes eating protein every day. I am this person. And it's crazy the power of that when they start telling their friends, no, I'm working out. I am someone who prioritizes getting up and training, rather than just like, I want this, this, and this. It's like, how do we pour that into someone's literally DNA?
Like what you said the other day to someone, either I overheard him on a phone call or maybe he said it on his Instagram, and it really, like, it was not meant for me, but it must have been meant for me, because I was like, oh, that's so true. Someone was saying they didn't have time to go to the gym, or they didn't to do their full session, like a 40-minute really hard session that they had planned for that day. But James was like, it's so much more important to go, you finish.
Yeah, so for something like that, and again, it's down to this kind of all or nothing behaviors that a lot of us have, right? If we can't do it perfectly and give it our all, then what's the point of doing anything? But actually, sometimes it's more powerful showing up and doing 15 minutes or 20 minutes, even if you're doing 3 exercises, to maintain the identity of someone who works out. The outcome of the workout is irrelevant.
I love that.
It's irrelevant. It's about showing up so you don't break that identity of someone who's showing up. And I do it sometimes. Like, sometimes I'll go in, I can't do my full hour session and, hit a PB. I'll do 20 minutes. I'll do 2 exercises, but I'm keeping that streak up of that person. And that's so powerful.
I love that. And keeping the identity. I think that when I stopped drinking 11 years ago, I was like, this is so much easier when I say, I don't drink. When I go to a party and I'm like, I don't drink. I remember, like, in the beginning, I'm not drinking anymore. I don't drink. It's not a Whole30. It's not a, I'm going to do the dry January. It's not a, it was so like, I don't do this.
Yeah, you are someone who doesn't drink alcohol.
Someone that's not going to drink
And then
alcohol.
that's accountability that you're holding yourself to as well. Because if you tell your friends, I work out every day, or, I work out 4 times a week, and then you don't, then you also feel that kind of a little bit of like, oh man, I got to show up for myself of what the version I told my friends I was.
I agree, though. I'm an all or nothing person for sure. I wish that I could find more balance in that, but all or nothing has certainly served me in life.
Of course.
And now I'm more all than nothing. So I feel that there are things that I've done in my life since I am so all or nothing that I know if I'm on like a gym streak and I'm like, I really want to make this part of my lifestyle. I knew that for me, because I'm all or nothing, if I skipped 2 days in a row, I was done with it. I got a treadmill and I put it in my garage. And I do the same thing. I'll get on there and I'll be like, okay, I'm going to get on here for 20 minutes. But I still did it 5 days in a row. It's so big for my brain. And the identity piece. And I love that. And I think that people will take that away and they'll remember that, because the power of I am is big. I love Joel Osteen always like writes about that. Like, I am this. I am. And I really believe that. I really believe that that's a powerful thing. Also, like, focusing on positive things. I'm like trying to teach my kids that too. Like, I feel like, James, like whenever I turn your page on the, which, you're one that always pops up for me, probably because I just like to watch both of y'all's stuff. It's very positive. And sometimes people look at life changes as this uphill battle and it's so negative, and you make it feel it's inspiring. it's positive.
Yeah, because you're never going to hate yourself into change, ever. If you're starting off day one and you don't like your training plan, or you don't like this, nutrition you're doing, and you're doing it for the wrong reasons because you don't like the way you look, that is never going to last. Yeah, you have to flip it on its head, and you have to think about, think of your future self and think of all the amazing things that could happen when you start doing this, and then you work back and you think, okay, positive, let's do this.
Were you always like that, like when you were playing rugby or when you were doing the reality show? Like, were you always like that, or do you feel like that's something you've learned as you've gotten older?
I think it's definitely something that I've become a lot better at as I've grown older. I do genuinely believe that, with like rugby and you learn a lot about losing, but turning that loss into positives, and I think, again, it's just like, it's the mind is like the ultimate adaptation tool. So if every time you see something negative, and I feel like the last 5 years of my life, it's really changed because I just am so unfazed if something goes wrong. I think a big thing for me was, a big thing for me was probably actually like when I lost my younger brother when he was 19 years old. And that just completely turned my world upside down. And I was like, right, there can't be anything worse in my life that's going to happen than losing like a younger brother unexpectedly. And so I think from that moment, I was like, if I have to keep my head above the water and to keep, being the person who I am and doing him proud, I have to wake up every day and look at the positives of my life. That's the only way I'm going to get through this. And by doing that over and over and over again, when stuff doesn't go wrong now, I literally do not care, because I'm like, my reaction of being negative is not going to change anything. Yeah. So and then you just teach yourself, anytime there's something negative, you're like, flip it into a positive. Maybe not in the first 5 minutes, but eventually just like, what's the positive here?
Yeah. That's a very British saying, every cloud.
Yeah. Every cloud. I love that.
He says that to me all the time.
That's a perspective thing, though, because so many people, something happens to them that's really traumatizing like that, and it becomes their identity, and they expect the worst. Instead of saying, it cannot get worse, I'm going to think positive. And I love it that you were able to do that. I've seen my sister lost a child, and I feel like it made her a better person in a lot of ways. It made her a better mom. Mm-hmm. It made her, because she was just like, it can't be any worse than this. And it's, instead of it making her rigid and hard, and she was very resilient, and she leaned more into faith, and I love it when people can do that.
Yeah,
and Jade is such a great example of that. Like, I just love Jade. I wish she was right here. I love her so much. Jade and your mom are just...
Mom and Jade know nothing about anyone on the internet at all. I said them by you guys, at the Levine.
Yes,
like, we love Shannon. So now everywhere we go, is Shannon coming? They don't know anything from Shannon's past, if Shannon was on TV or anything. They just love Shannon. No, it's who Shannon is, and Taylor.
It's really sweet. But it's a beautiful thing, and I think Jade is a great example of that from such a raw and real perspective. And then your family, your parents, and you to be able to turn towards faith and positive when so many people aren't able to do that, don't find the strength in themselves to do that. And that's why a lot of families break up after death. That's why a lot of divorces happen after death, because they can't wrap their head around anything positive happening after that.
Yeah.
And so
what do you feel like got you, like, what was the thing that got your whole family through that?
Honestly, just really like staying together and being on the same team. I think, especially for my parents, their marriage for the first time in 30 years was seriously tested, because obviously when something like that happens, you blame each other, you blame yourselves, and I saw it for the first time ever. Like, my parents were kind of like on the fence, like wobbling a lot, and their thing was just you just have to keep fighting for what you believe in. Yeah. And all of us were there. You process things differently. People, react differently and take different amounts of time. But I think ultimately it's just never like breaking apart from each other. Yeah. And I think that's where, family is like so important.
Yes. I agree with that. My grandpa used to always say, if you can stick, because we were, all of us 23 cousins that all grew up together, and we were doing all these cool things together. Then people become adults and they have their own lives. And he'd always say to us over and over, if you stick together, nobody can beat you. And it's so true. If you stick together, nobody can beat you. And I think too, in at least our culture here, I think that splitting from your family and like creating your own identity and stuff like that, people put more weight on that sometimes than they do about what were the good things in my family? What's my family legacy? Like, why do we all have to split from our families? Family is such a beautiful thing, and the nuclear family, and like even domesticity. It's just, I hope that it's something that always feels beautiful to people. Yeah. Because it is a beautiful, beautiful thing. The family is the most beautiful thing, I believe, in my life. And that is why, you know, I think that whether it's you being in a relationship, whether it's you losing a child or someone in your family, like you can, if you always come back to family and what you want for your family, like you can make it through anything.
Yeah, and you're always stronger the other side when something like that happens. Even if it's like your own journey, you always come out a stronger, better person for it. Even though during it, you can't see that. You can't see that light at the end. But then when you get there, it shapes you who you are.
I agree.
Also, to think kind of like in the way we were saying how you and Kyle met, how James and I met, how like kismet and like, oh my gosh, like God really put us two together like that. If you think about the chances that you would be someone's sister, that you would be someone's daughter, like you were so meant to be that nuclear family. Yeah. And my sister and I, we didn't grow up super close. Honestly, we wanted to kill each other, and not in like a haha, we're like close sisters. Like we really had
like putting tacks in the bed, like you wanted to injure
a tumultuous relationship even into our early adulthood. And then we've become such a different two sisters, and it's because I think I finally just realized one day, like, we are not the same. We've never meant to be the same. Like God did not put us together to be, because I would look at other sisters and be like, God, they're so similar. Like, why can't we be like that? Like, they share clothes, they do this.
Yes, you accepted her for who she was.
Yes.
I mean, look at how different you are. She's married to her. She has a wife. Correct?
Yeah.
Yes, I was going to say, she's married to a woman. You're married to a man. There's so many different things. But we're
so similar too, because we also grew up in the same family. We have a lot of the same views and beliefs, and we have a lot of differing views and beliefs. And like, it's just such a beautiful thing when one day, and I think she figured it out a lot sooner than I did. She's a lot smarter than I am. She's older than me. But like, one day when it clicked for me that like, that is literally the sister that God gave you, and only you. He gave her to my brother too, but like, no one is sisters like we are. And no one else actually in this entire huge universe is Shannon Ford Middleton's sister. And like, the chances of that happening must be for a reason, must be like a really special thing. It makes me emotional. I'm like, and you have to never
accept
had
people
that
for who they are.
Yeah,
you know, especially if they're in your family.
Of course.
I mean, looking for differences. I agree that there is something that like that person was placed in your life for a reason, and it's great when everybody's the same. I mean, it's really easy to get along, of course, but like you can grow so much. Yeah, having different family members and people that believe and do different things.
You can choose to see it as a lesson. Like if I'm ever frustrated with any of my family members, I'm like, okay, what's this lesson? What's this lesson, God? Because let me learn from it. For real. Please. For real. What is this one? And what am I not doing right? And what do I need to figure out? So yeah, it's when you can kind of like, because a lot of people are like, well, you can't choose family. Just because they're family doesn't mean you should exile them if you need to. It's like, of course, if something really horrible happened. But if you really are just like finding yourselves butting heads and be like, I just don't get along with them, like try a different approach, because it's a really special thing to have family.
It was devastating to me when people were saying they could not go to Thanksgiving with their families because of political differences.
That's crazy.
Are you kidding me? You and I both have friends on the extremes of each side.
Of course.
I cannot that you would. I hate that.
Yeah. You can't walk through life. I think it was Ricky Gervais said something like, how foolish are you if you think you can walk through life. Well, yeah, thinking that everyone is going to be of the same opinion as you. Yeah. Like it's like everyone is going to have different beliefs, and it's very, exactly, he said, it's how arrogant can you be to walk through life thinking that, no one's ever going to disagree with you.
Yeah. It's and also you just have to a beautiful thing. It's not that difficult to just be like, hey, we all have different opinions, so let's just not talk about it at Thanksgiving. Yeah. Like people have this idea like, we should be able to argue, we should be able to debate, but sometimes Thanksgiving should just be Thanksgiving.
Sometimes we ain't gotta argue.
Sometimes we really don't have to debate. Like I think
that's about the food.
Yeah, that's
talk
a
about
lot
the calorie count and the stuffing. No,
that's
I like it how James is always like, no, enjoy your life. I love that. Yeah, that's part of your philosophy.
Yeah, because that's so important.
That is an important thing.
Yeah,
because This
loves
is life.
Five Guys.
This is life.
Yeah, because listen, there are many people with six packs and the fittest humans in the world, and they are miserable. So
yeah, and I mean, you're 5'9" with a great six pack.
Exactly.
You can
yeah, four pack.
You can eat Shake Shack and Five Guys and enjoy. I mean,
That
we have
sounds
better
so nice. I need
junk
to leave
food
here.
that you can like cheat with.
Yeah, your junk
probably.
food's like crack cocaine here.
Yeah,
I have to keep that. I have to keep that at arm's length.
You
yeah.
want some Skittles?
Yes,
He's
it's
like,
good.
meth?
I know, definitely, man.
I had my first McDonald's here, and I was like, wow,
Like,
the fries are like insane.
Yeah. No, he loved it. He was like, wow, I get it.
The sauces, that's one thing that Brits could do way better that you guys smash. Sauces. Sauces. You just
Sauces.
have all the sauces. Like
I think
ranch and this and
salt
this and
in
this.
general, you guys could do a little bit
Yeah.
more seasoning. I'm lucky because his mom's an incredible cook, and I didn't understand when people, it's a big joke. Everyone says it, like British people cook bland, boring food like that. You're not. No one has ever left and been like, you know what I'm craving tonight? British food. No one's ever said that. Like Indian food, Mexican food, like American food. No one's ever like craving British food.
it's like fish and chips, or if you're like at Epcot,
And
you know,
even that's kind of Scottish.
Or Sunday
Really.
roast.
Yeah.
So
What about our roast beef?
yeah, so
Roast.
his
The
roast,
roast.
which is
Let him
basically
have
just
his
like
roast.
Thanksgiving. But
Again,
his
the
mom is
Brits,
a really, really good cook. So when people would ask me like, how's the food though? I'm like, oh, I think it's good. And then he was taking me to really nice restaurants that were like really like great food. And I was like, I don't really understand what you're talking about. All it takes is going to like one person's house or one person's family dinner, and you're like, oh, did you guys just boil all of it? Did you just? Did you just
boil all
I've had those meals.
that is, and then
Not
I'm
in
like,
my house.
and I'm like, I got actually, because maybe it's just a southern root to me, I got in a bad mood that one time. You know the time, it was a roast. I was like, I can't even eat it. It's so bad. It's so bad. And he was like, oh, it's nice food. And I was like, oh, it's just like, can I get some
It's
salt,
because
some
we
sauce?
don't put 9 million ingredients in it.
I know,
That's
you don't have
why.
enough sauce.
That's how food actually tastes. You guys just your taste buds are like
Oh,
so used to
man.
all the ingredients.
That is great. That's great. Okay, so next in your careers, I know you're getting ready to go on your comedy tour. I love it that you've reinvented yourself into comedy. The ultimate vulnerability is like standing on a stage and doing stand-up comedy.
Yeah, I want
Would
to
you do
try.
it? You can do it. You're funny.
I could, but that is like
You could. I'm sorry.
To me,
you
no,
couldn't.
no. I could tell some fun. Nowhere near as funny as Shannon, but I could
I'm
stand
glad
on
you're calling her
stage.
funny
I
because
could
remember
stand on
like a
stage.
year ago and you were like, you're just really outgoing, I think.
He used to say, you guys, I'd be like, do you think I'm funny? He'd be like, you're just really outgoing. I'm like,
He was just jealous.
until you saw me on stage.
And then she started making me laugh a little bit more often, and I was like, maybe you are actually quite funny. It's because I've never been with a
Funny girl?
I've never been with like a funny girl, a woman who makes me laugh. They've
You
always
weren't
been
used to it.
attractive
I
stuff,
love that he
and
came
I love
around
it.
to
It's
that.
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, stand up. That's got to be one of the hardest things in the world.
It's just crazy to think that when you get on stage, right? Like, so when I would do like live like you're a singer, okay? If you got on stage, that's a very vulnerable thing, right? Like you're trusting that you think everyone's looking at you knowing she thinks her voice is good. And so she's getting on stage to sing because she thinks she has a good voice. And then you obviously do have an incredible voice. So then it happens. But like, if you get off stage and you didn't have a good voice, all people can really say is like, her voice wasn't that good. When I get on stage, people know that I wrote these jokes because I think they're funny.
Yeah.
So imagine I get on stage. It's not like, well, it wasn't her lyrics. Like an actor, not a bad actor, like that was the script, not her fault. Like I wrote these jokes because I think they're funny.
Also-
If no one laughs, mortified.
Yeah, but
like,
also that's the thing. When someone's singing a song, you wait till the end of the song with jokes.
They go the whole time.
Every 30 seconds, a minute, you're waiting for feedback. And that's like even harder.
Have you ever had a show where it was like a very cold, like hard audience? Like
New
how
York
do you pivot?
is tough. New York is
Oh, because they're like they've got good comedy.
They could just go see Dave Chappelle on a Tuesday and it's not a big deal. They could walk down the street and go see like, Nikki Glaser popping into the Comedy Cellar. Like it was tough for me to get over that. And I will say also, I really did not. I left the show and was like, that was horrible. Because I had the show before that was North Carolina. And so like
Everybody's just laughing at
those
everything.
I could literally stand on
Yeah, it's
stage.
crazy.
I could shit in my hands and clap and they'd be like, that's hilarious. Like I just, the bar is lower. I'm sorry, North Carolina. I love you guys. You're my people, but the bar is lower. And like, I think I left New York and my tour manager did say, and then 3 other people were like, you've never performed. It was only my 3rd show ever. It was a really large building. It was like more of a warehouse. And they were like, laughs go up to die. Like all of that matters. Like, in these comedy clubs that are much more intimate,
so
the laughs
small.
are big and they're grand, and like even you can hear one person laugh if they, and I'm like, cool, that one person thought that was funny. Like in this huge warehouse and in New York, I was like, oh my God, I'm ruined. Like this isn't.
I bet you grew so much. That is such a, like, putting yourself out there, being that vulnerable, and then not getting the reaction. Like that has got to help you grow.
It's
like
important.
That's tough.
Yeah, it's important. Like you have to test the boundaries. You have to, for me, it was this like this tango of I want to be taken seriously as a comedian. And comedians aren't afraid of being canceled as much as little influencers are, because influencers, we have to do everything right. Like we're really there to tell you the shade of lip gloss you're wearing, but everyone also wants to know who you voted for. It's like, okay, I thought I was just here selling dresses. Like what? And so everyone is like, every influencer is walking on eggshells, hyper aware to not insult anyone or any group or anything. I really wanted, and at a couple of my shows, people have been like, I can't believe you said that. And I'm like, I'm not an influencer, I'm a comedian. Like I can say that. It's, you know why? It's a joke. It's a joke. I was just kidding. It's a joke.
Yeah.
Because it is. And so that's been the slightly hard thing to navigate, because I'll write a joke. I'll be like in a writing session with my producer and she'll crack up and I'm like, but I obviously can't say that. And she was like, why? I'm like, well, because that's crazy. And she's like, that's hilarious. And I'm like, should I just say it? She's like, just say it. I'm like, okay. So it's been challenging, but every time I'm done, every time before I walk on stage, I'm like, what are you doing? This is crazy. Why do you think you can do this with your life? You're so unprepared and you're going to fail. And then I finish and I'm riding a high that like I can't explain that I've ever felt in any other career, any other time. And I walk off stage and I'm like, I'm literally meant for this. And so
every time she comes off stage, she's like, oh, I'm meant for this. Beforehand, though, once she thought it was a good idea on an empty stomach to drink a Celsius.
I never had a Celsius before.
She absolutely went to the moon.
I never had a Celsius before, and Celsius needs to answer for their crimes, because I did not know what was in those things. And when I posted, I had my first ever panic attack. Congrats, right before a show. And it was so crazy because like all the staff, at that point it was like my 20th show, and all the staff was coming up to me like, oh, are you nervous? Are you nervous? I'm so sorry. And I was like it was so bad I threw up. And Courtney knew that I wasn't nervous. So she was also like, what did you take? Because, I've been known to dabble in a couple of substances. And so she's like, what did you take? And I was like, nothing. I drank a Celsius. And she was like, oh God. And I was like, what's in them? And why does everyone keep having that same reaction?
Need energy in her system. Like she's high
I'm a live wire.
Anyway.
I exist like this. I really don't need an energy drink.
I hosted Thanksgiving last year, and my dad was walking out the door, and he was drinking his Celsius. It was like 8 p.m.
Oh, gosh.
And he'd slept through half of Thanksgiving, because, everybody's laid up. And I was like, why are you that's a Celsius. That's an energy drink. And he's like, oh, I already drank one of them. It was the second one. Went home and went to sleep.
That's crazy. They're marketed as like vitamin drinks, though. And I'm like, it's not
a vitamin drink.
No, it'll blow your head off.
Kyle swears that they're not the same as they used to be. This is something you and Kyle probably differ on. He's very, very, very intense with caffeine.
Really?
You drink a Monster every once in a while.
Yeah, but
but he drinks
if I really want to
and a double espresso shot like in the morning as soon as he wakes up.
Really?
That's crazy.
That is crazy.
And he drinks like after dinner. He drinks coffee.
I mean,
Taylor does too.
Caffeine is a great drug. Like it's actually fine, caffeine. Right? In the right amount.
It also affects people differently. It might just not affect him.
But it's just the stuff. It's just the stuff that they put in these Monsters and stuff that's not. It's not pure. Like if you want a pure energy hit, a little espresso, some honey, and some salt, and then you're good.
Oh, espresso, honey, and salt.
Yeah, because you lose salt when you drink coffee, so you want to stay hydrated by having a little bit of salt, and then the honey is just pure energy. So that's like, I didn't know that. That's your natural energy.
I drink coffee and it sends me to the moon. I think caffeine Taylor drinks coffee after every dinner, like almost, not every dinner, but like if we're out, she'll get a coffee, and I'm like, I wouldn't be asleep till 4 in the morning.
People have different sensitivities to it. So.
I know, and the nutritionist that I'd worked with, because I had blood sugar irregularities too, was like, you can't do coffee on an empty stomach. Like every morning, it's gonna send you through. I'm just like, I can't give up coffee. I was like, I'm gonna lie to you.
Just lie, exactly.
And I'm gonna tell you that I didn't drink coffee. If we can't agree on this, I'm gonna lie.
But then that's when you have to weigh up like, your happiness versus like
because it brings me joy.
And you can play around with some other bits and pieces and still drink coffee.
And I like frothy milk. I love the real milk. It's just my thing, and it's fine. But I love it that you talking and wrapping that up too, because the comedy show, the Pray For Me comedy, the tour starts in February and it ends in May. So you're going like all across the country and doing this.
Yeah.
So I'm
It's
excited
super
for the
cool.
North Carolina show for you.
Yeah, North
Nervous about
Carolina.
New York.
Can't wait to be there, guys. It's amazing every time.
We'll post all of this too in the show notes.
And my very first show is in New York. So
oh wow,
back
you're
in the same
with
venue
challenge.
too. So
Really?
yeah, and I actually was really against that. I was like, put me in a comedy club, but it's hard to get into a comedy club. I'm doing it at a city winery.
I love it that you're doing that.
So yeah, back to the scene of the crime.
Doesn't the
Hopefully-
most joy come from like the biggest challenge though? It's
Yeah.
so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. Like if it's easy, I just read something on Instagram and I really wish that I'd like read it before this because it would have been perfect right here. But it's something like, it might have been Ricky Gervais that said it, which is funny because I don't even listen to that much of his stuff.
He said some good one-liners.
Yeah, but it's something like, easy. I don't know. I can't remember. I'm gonna have
There's one that I really like. It's like easy decisions, hard life, hard decisions, easy life.
That's a great line.
That
wasn't
that
the line,
sums
but
it up.
that's even better. So we'll go with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like it.
What's something in your career you haven't done that you would like to do?
This felt big and really hard to do. Oh, I'd love to get into more hosting. I think I would do. I'm really quick, and I think I
agree, you would
could.
be a
I
great
would
host.
be a good host for. And I don't mind audiences, especially God knows now, having done comedy where you have to memorize an hour of something, like a monologue basically for an hour, knowing that I even just had some notes, like I just feel like I would be so comfortable on stage and be able to crush that. So I would love to get into more hosting.
That's a good one. I like that. I think you'd be great at that. Okay, so, and then then we'll wrap this up because I know you guys don't have all day to sit and talk to me, even though I can talk to you all day. So the Coach James, like I said, we've talked about the philosophy and like the mindset. That I think that there are a lot of things that make you different in your approach to health and fitness. I think that you have to find someone that inspires you in health and fitness. And I'm a woman and you inspire me. It feels very practical, which I think that there's more practicality in your culture with health and fitness. Here it's really complicated. It's like you can do one of 9,000 diets, or you could take one of 9,000 things, or do what, they're just... In America, we just need things to be easy for us. And like you guys aren't afraid of a little hard work.
Yeah.
But I like how you've brought that no nonsense approach to you, the way that you share about fitness, but how it also feels like it feels approachable enough and inspiring enough to where like I like to watch it because I think the no nonsense approach is very effective because I say it all the time just about life. Like, this is it. This is it. This is your whole entire life. And a lot of times health and fitness is what's the one thing that's like standing in people's way of a happy life.
Yeah, and I say that this is like a big theme this year for all of our members in the Coach James Club and just generally with my content is we all need to be focusing more on the major and less on the minor, less on the nitty gritty detail, less on, what's this little supplement going to do for me? Like, I did this post the other day. It's like, people will, jump in an ice bath every morning, but they're getting 5 hours sleep. I'm like, forget the ice bath, start prioritizing sleep, key pillar of health, things like that,
great points.
and spending hundreds of dollars on supplements rather than just prioritizing eating real foods with vegetables on their plate every day. You don't need to spend all that money on supplements, but you're right, people are just looking for like easy things to do, all this AG1 green juice and stuff. It's because it's easy just to mix it in a drink and take it, but it's not doing anything for you.
It's the whole food, because whenever you guys cook too, I feel like you have gotten a lot healthier because you've been inspired by your husband, which is great. It's great. I always say, like, the most important decision I think you make in your life is who you marry, because that is who is going to influence you, and you're going to spend so much time with. You guys have obviously selected well. I did too. So I think that that's wonderful that he didn't push it on you, but that you have just started to go over to that team.
Well, because
it's inspirational.
You can't. It's like numbers don't lie, right?
Yeah.
So in that regard, like, you can't like deny numbers, and I feel that way with like results and the way I feel like that doesn't lie. Like, maybe in the beginning I was just like, okay, he wants to eat a starch and a vegetable and a protein every day, and then it's like, well, because he's like my boyfriend or my fiance, I want to like cook with him, and like and then all of a sudden I'm feeling way better. I'm sleeping better. Like, that doesn't lie. Results don't lie. Numbers don't lie. And when you feel better, and all it takes, like, you can say all the things you want to say and they're all correct. But for me, I didn't work out a day in my life before I met James. Like that was honestly like my annoying personality. It was very pick me of me. I was like, I don't work out. It's like, okay, shut up.
She said that to me once. I was like, oh God.
Okay, shush.
I hope you're lying about that like you did your age.
That's a bad change.
I never worked out before I met James. And, you know, you can call it what you want. Like, oh, you changed for him. Like, why would you not want to better yourself to be with someone? But I say it to anyone that's never worked out before. I promise you, the literal second, and whether it's a number on the scale, whether it's the way you look at yourself in the mirror, whether it's the way your jeans fit you now, the second you see a result, you cannot beat that feeling. And that's all you need. And so for me, like, he made me a better person, but then just seeing that the stuff he was saying wasn't just because that's how he wants to live his life. It was like actually so beneficial to living your life. Yeah. And you can't deny that when you see it in yourself.
And I think especially when it's like your partner or someone like a loved one or a relative, you have to let them, like, you go here, you have to let them meet you here. Yeah. You can't force it upon anyone, and you can't force people into change. You just can't. Like, you have to let people discover it for themselves. Agreed. So like it's the same with when you get coaching, mentorship, you see a therapist, like you still have to do the work, but you have to let them come. You know, you can give them all the tools, but they have to come and take them and use them, right? So I think that's really important. And of course, like I haven't got it right all the time. And there's some times where I'm like, babe, are you working out today or not? You know, a little like guilt trippy, but like,
no, and I'm like, don't you dare say that to me.
if I was to do that the whole time, it would backfire. Yeah. So I you know, there's different ways of communicating with different people, but I knew that kind of leading by example was going to be the best thing, just like you do with kids. Like it's way more powerful leading by example than just telling.
Agreed. I think that something that you also do very well is I believe that in sales, in just whatever it is that you are portraying online, the people that sell things the best or the people that inspire you the most, they're the people that are the most passionate about the thing that they're doing. Your passion for health and fitness is transferred through the screen. Sometimes whenever I watch people, I'm like, well, this is a fad and they're going to sell me on this diet or something. I can tell that is, you are very passionate about that. It wants me to do the thing because you are passionate about it. And I think that's a great coach too. A great coach 100%. Is someone that really, really, really believes in what they're doing. And if they didn't have any of the clients in front of them doing the same thing, they would be doing it for themselves. The exact same thing.
They would.
Yeah.
You have to live and breathe it, you know, and that's where, like, these days, especially through, you know, seeing people online, you can just tell from body language, from energy, if people are just saying stuff to try and make some money from people and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, agreed. So what's next for the Coach James Club? I'll put all of this information too in the show notes, because I love it. Like, you can follow it on social media for free, but also you can sign up and you can
I mean, we have our programs. We actually largely mainly coach women, you know, between 30 and 60. Like, I signed up a 70-year-old the other day. You know, it's never too late to start, but we're very much just like I said, you know, you can go to so many places for training programs and nutrition plans, but we really spend time and pay a lot of due diligence on just really customize everything for each person, because everyone is different, especially women. You know, your bodies are so different, so complicated, not just like for yourself, but compared to one another. And the one-to-one coaching that you get with us is just, it's so like my whole team, we're just so passionate about helping people. So you really get that coaching. So I mean, it's great. You know, we're doing a lot of great work with women, but for me, the best thing in the world is seeing someone go from A to B and literally feeling and realizing how much better life is when you are healthy and fit.
Yeah. What's something in your career that you haven't done that you would like to do?
I would love to do more kind of public talking on stage. I'm actually about to launch an academy to help coaches grow into great coaches and to help more people.
When does that launch?
Hopefully in, what are we now, January? Next month.
And will it be focused on like fitness coaches? Like
pretty much like all fitness coaches. Because I've gone through this journey myself of the last 5 years, and I haven't had any mentors or anyone telling me what to do. I've had to learn it all myself. Yeah. Whereas I want to take all that and help, you know, a coach who's coming into the industry.
Give the cheat codes.
You know, and boost their career, not just obviously so they can, you know, be successful, but help more people and so on.
I love it.
So I think this year will be exciting, because I think I will be doing more kind of like talking to other coaches in a public space.
I think that's great.
But
I think you would be very good at that, especially in the US where everybody loves an Australian accent.
yeah, exactly. I've got to practice that at home, the Aussie accent.
Yes, for sure. Okay, well, 2025 is a big year for the Middletons.
It really is.
This was such a treat to have you guys on. Because I really love so much about both of you individually. And I think that when two awesome people get together, it's such a beautiful thing. I think the relationship is inspirational. But I also just think that like there are so many things that people can learn from you guys and your philosophy on life and how you've made it through hard times. And just like there's just so much beautiful about Shannon and James, and this was such a treat. It's the last podcast actually that I'm recording.
It better be.
And so I'm ending on a high note right here after, and then we take a break for, of course, like maternity leave, and we'll see. But this is just, I loved this podcast, so I really appreciate you guys.
Thank you for having us, Mal. We love you.
Thank you. You're an absolute legend.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so thanks so much to Shannon and James. I will include everything in the show notes about the Coach James Club, about Shannon's new comedy tour, and everything Shannon and James Middleton. Of course, you can find them on Instagram, which is where I watch them mostly because we never know what's going to happen with the other apps, I guess. So I'll include all that in the show notes. Thank you guys so much for coming on, and thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Living Fully podcast.